Welcome, everybody, to this edition of The Kingdom and its Stories. We're delighted to have you join us today. And let me just remind you, as I do every week, that this broadcast has a purpose, one purpose, and that purpose is to help those of us who are listening together and or watching to consider in a fresh way how we might better be Jesus' hands and feet in the world in which God has placed us. And we do that by listening to the testimonies of people who are doing that in the way that God has enabled them to do it in their communities. And today we have the honor of having a long-term friend of my wife and I, Donna Otto. And Donna, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And because the people listening don't know you, give us the elevator speech. Who is Donna Otto?
It's a long ride, though, Bob.
That's all right.
We have to go to
We got a tall building.
we have to go to the 80th floor. I'll be 80 this year, and I was thinking about what that looks like. You and I, of course, have attended the same church many years ago, and being 80 has, I'm not quite 80 yet. I will be in the beginning of the new year. But I was looking at what does that look like and what happened in all of those years. And I think for me, most of my life has been led by the encouragement and teaching, first of all, of others to me, women particularly, and then for me to have the privilege to replace that. When I was in my mid 30s, 6 women came to me and said, "Would you mentor us?" And I said decidedly, loudly, clearly, no. Like not on your life, you know. What do I have to say? What do I know? What it was all of the usual, and but they were persistent, and they kept going, coming back to me. I'm married to a man who's an attorney who's helped me argue my points. He's encouraged my encouraging arguing way. We lived together in Phoenix for 45 years, moving here from Chicago, Illinois, where I was born to a woman, a young girl who was 14 years old. My mother conceived me and did not even know that she had done that. Her father, who was an immigrant from Persia, told her that if you kiss a boy, you'll make a baby. And she did not kiss my father, but they made a baby. And she didn't even know she was pregnant till my grandmother noted that she was large of tummy and maybe there was something they should check out. So I came into the world as an child, a fatherless child, a motherless child in that she was so young, didn't even know what she was doing. And my grandfather, who was a very angry man about having this beautiful Persian daughter of his find herself in this condition. They, however, did take my mother in. They had by this time moved to California where they owned a vineyard. And my mother delivered me in Chicago because about 30 days before the baby was due, she decided to drive back to Chicago, take a bus, Greyhound bus back to Chicago, and see if she could find my dad. And the trip put her into labor. She got to Chicago only to find out that my father had another girlfriend. Do you think? You think? And so she didn't tell him about the pregnancy. She delivered me, went back to California, and I spent the first year with 2 spinster women that my grandmother placed me with who loved Jesus. I never met
Mm.
any of them, never met any of them. Loved Jesus, sang to me, prayed for me, took me to church, read the Bible to me. And I knew those stories much later in life after I was a young adult. And the aunts who lived there knew of these women and told me these stories. And I thought, of course, that's how I began my life, because my life has just been filled with God adventures and events that only the all-loving God could have planned ahead of time, prepared for me to be.
Amazing.
That's me.
Okay, well, that's your beginning.
Yeah, that's my beginnings. It's right.
Yeah, so we're up to about the fifth floor on the 80 floor skyscraper.
First
So,
on the fifth floor.
so tell us some more.
Well, what happened after that was my father discovered that I had been born, and I was about 3 years old, and he got in he's an Italian stallion. You have to know that my father was an Italian stallion and my mother was a beautiful Persian woman, okay? Young,
Okay,
both of them young. And so he got in his hot, fast red car, drove all the way to California, and said, "I love you, marry me, let's make a life together." And his Italian nature and heritage really believed in family. Now, family,
hmm,
how to make a family, how to be a family, he had no idea. Neither one of them did, but he believed in it. So they got married, moved to Chicago. I had a brother who's a few years younger than I am, obviously. And they lived together for about 12 very unhappy years. My father was a womanizer. He couldn't help himself in many ways. That's what he was raised in, that's what he did. But in that time, my mother said, well, if you're not, we were born into the Catholic Church. So when they got married, they were married in the Catholic Church because my father was Roman Catholic because he was Italian. And that was how church was then. And so
sure.
we grew up in our early formative grades of school and church in a Roman Catholic church, one of which I would say right now at my age, I'm tremendously grateful for. There were so many things that I learned about God, big God, God separate from the Holy Spirit and Jesus, God, that I don't think I would have learned in the other places of my Christian heritage. So I loved that. I loved the liturgy of the church. I loved learning to pray on a regular basis, whether I understood what prayer was or not. I was learning the habit of it. So
Hmm.
that was, but my mother said, "You're not going to church. I'm going to take the children to a church I know." And that was a Pentecostal
A
church,
little different.
a little different. And that's where I first felt the love of God through people. The church family was small, and they took this wandering little gal, tall. I was as tall as I am right now at 13 years old. My mother was keeping me very plain. She didn't let me shave my legs or do anything to my hair. I wore very plain clothes. We were poor. And that church family just took me in and treated me like I was a princess. They loved me. They paid for camp. They would invite me to their house on Sundays. Mrs. Robinson taught me more memory verses than you can imagine. And she bribed me with candy. My teeth are bad, but my Bible knowledge is very strong. And they were the ones who said, this is a walk of faith with Jesus. And the night that I came to faith, a young man was teaching the Young People's Pentecostal Fellowship, that's what it was called. And he said that there was a God who cared more about me than anyone I could imagine,
Hmm.
and that he would stay with me forever. That's all I needed to hear. I didn't know anything else, but someone who cared about me more, no one else really did care about me in that way. So I
Right.
walked a little aisle and said yes to the Lord. And the very following Friday night, I went back to church. And this is those days, Bob. These are those days. And the ladies came, and the women who were supporting the young people's group laid their hands on me and asked that God would bless me with the gift of speaking in tongues. I didn't even know what that was. Like, what is that? And what does that mean?
Right.
But this is a part of my heritage. And that night, I spoke in tongues. So here I was, 17 years old with that history. And now I have this new plateau and street and road ahead of me. So grateful, so grateful,
Well, Donna.
so grateful.
So, okay, now link that story of your beginning to the ministry that God has called you to.
Yes.
and tell us what that means and what it's meant.
Well, you can see God's painting in it. And of course, I couldn't. Married, we moved here, and these young women came and said, "Will you mentor us?" And I said, "No, like, no, absolutely no." In the process, I had become, with great amazement still, but delight, a close friend, a close friend with Elizabeth Elliot. I met her in a strange way, and she liked my spunk. And a lot of girls tried to get her to mentor them, to disciple them, to teach them, to hang with them. And she saw through that very quickly, and that was not her cup of tea. But I was feisty enough and strong enough, and she welcomed me into her world. And one day,
Okay, for our listeners, remind us,
oh,
who is
Elizabeth
Elizabeth
Elliot.
Elliot?
Elizabeth Elliot, now in heaven. She was one of the wives of 5 martyred men in the 1960s by the Auca Indians in Ecuador. And they killed all of the husbands. Elizabeth had a 2-year-old child. After it broke, it was world news on every magazine and newspaper around the world in those days. She came back to America, settled up things, buried Jim, and told her mother and father, a very lovely, well-established family of faith, that she was taking her then 2.5-year-old daughter back to the very jungle to disciple the men who were there who killed her husband. Whenever I tell that, I have a gasp in my, I think of my own daughter. And I think of if my daughter came and told me that story, I'd say, okay, if you got to go, you got to go, but you're not taking my granddaughter. I mean, this is the jungle where they just killed her father. But she went, and the story, if you've never read anything of Elizabeth Elliot's, please pick up one of her books, especially the book called, oh, I'm not going to remember the title. It's the story of the Auca Indian life she had with them and how they came to faith. One of the men who killed her husband became a follower of Christ and a friend of Elizabeth. That's forgiveness. That's
It's an
forgiveness.
incredible story.
Incredible. And incredible that here I am. I've just told you my story. Here I am, this little gal and now Elizabeth Elliot wants to be my friend. Now, I have to tell you that I didn't bow and revere her like everybody else did. I don't think I was ever that kind of person. And that's what she liked about me. She told me many years later, you didn't have any of that false stuff. And in my presence, you were different and I wasn't. But she helped me so much. And one day she said to me, she had a very long, she was very tall, very thin. She kept herself the same weight at college till the day she died. And she had a long pointer finger and she pointed at me. She says she never pointed, but she did. And she said to me, if you don't find your disciplines now, you will never do what God has called you to do.
Amen.
Through gates,
Donna,
through gates of splendor, through gates of splendor is the name of that book.
there we go.
Elizabeth Elliot.
Okay. All right. Let me do a quick station break. For
Okay.
those who are listening, you're listening to the Kingdom and Its Stories, and we have the privilege of having Donna Otto with us today, who's sharing her story. And we're going to move very quickly into the calling that Donna has and how that has impacted the lives of the people. So, Donna, um, share with us the calling that God has given you and how that is being used to influence other people in your world.
In my world. And so in my 37th year of life, I spent a year saying why I shouldn't engage in mentoring these women. And
Yes.
spent a year telling me why I should. And when it all boiled down, it was the reminder that what had happened to me could happen to others, and that I had this wonderful backdrop story to encourage them. And so, with the help of Elizabeth, in many ways, we used to laugh about calling it Watts. The name of the program should be Watts, Women of Titus 2. And I said, Elizabeth, nobody will come to that. So we called it Modern Homemakers. And our goal was when I started with the 7 girls, it was just a small group. The small group grew into 35 and 50 and 100 and 200. And we met weekly. And the goal was always to teach on the 4 subjects we found out of Titus and Timothy: to be a woman of the word, to be a wife, to be a mother, and to be a homemaker. In 32 years of teaching weekly, I never talked about anything but those 4 subjects. And
Wow.
there is enough material to go on and on and on. And it was at a time when women were being encouraged to leave home and go to work, and they found homemakers a place of information, a place of encouragement. The model was very simple. I taught weekly. They met into small groups. The small groups encouraged them in their walk. I recently was invited to speak in Washington, D.C. The woman who invited me is the daughter of a lawyer who now works in DC in a senator assistant work job. Her daughter found me on the website. She told her mother that she was inviting Donna Otto to come to speak to this group. Her mother was a lawyer who came to Homemakers when I was teaching and found
Mm.
that she could be a lawyer and a full-time stay-at-home mom if she juggled her priorities. She quit working for several years. When she heard her daughter say Donna Otto, she said, honey, that's the woman I told you about. Second generation was wonderful. So
Wow.
I continue to say, even though the newspaper, there was a magazine article on the front of Time magazine showing a cut down the middle. One woman was a sad little woman with half of her breast hanging like she had been nursing, and the other woman had a suit and a tie and a briefcase. Choose was the article, choose.
Oh boy.
And that was what we went through in those years. But women chose, many women chose, and I got to be encouragement to them. We did that. I taught for 37 years. In those years, many small groups came together and stayed together. I myself moved from the big group into 2 small groups, one of which I've been meeting now 26 years with 12 women around my table. We started out weekly, we moved to bi-weekly, we now meet monthly. These women are all in their 50s, some of them turning 60, and they are following that course in teaching young women too. So the plan of God to encourage me to get into young women's life was not my plan at all. I was a poli-sci major. I had things to do that did not include full-time ministry, but I can't describe in words. I hope that I convey to you, Bob, what a joy my life has been, what a
Mm.
surprise my life has been, and totally led by God's plan and purpose and direction. My husband always says, he's a long-suffering husband and he's had all these women around him for all of his life, and he's charming and has been a wonderful, wonderful help to the ministry. He's a lawyer, not anymore. He's retired now. But he said, I watched you do these things and then watched how we lived our lives because of it. And now David and I are meeting. 2 nights ago, we had a young couple in our home, 23 and 25 years old. What do they want with a pair of 80-year-olds, right? I said, well, I make them dinner. They came to eat. They
All
ate
right.
and they stayed and they stayed. And at 9:30, we're ready to say night, night now. And after they left, David said, it is the way that we have lived our lives that young couples want to be engaged with us as well. And for 15 years, David taught a class at Scottsdale Bible Church for young married couples. So we have this woman thing on this side and the young couples on that side. And we feel like God has given us a great grace to encourage young families to live their life. My life verse, a strange verse out of the book of Ecclesiastes: whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. And
Say, Donna, say that again, slowly, so that our listeners can.
okay, whatsoever your hand finds to do it with all your might. And that's how God made me. That's just how he made me, to do things with zeal and enthusiasm. But I didn't know that this is what I was going to do. I'm grateful for it beyond. I wrote 9 books in that time. We created video series. The website is full of information and opportunities for women to take materials to themselves, listen to podcasts. 1,600 podcasts are on that website. And we never planned to do any of that. They just
Donna,
came
what's the website?
at modernhomemakers.org.
.com.
.org.
Oh, .org. Okay.
Dot
Modernhomemakers.org.
.org. Yeah.
Okay.
And all the books and everything that's there is all available.
All right. Have you got a story of an individual that you can share with us? That
Oh, oh, so
I know you have
I'll tell you one
many.
that I'll tell you one that just pops to my head, so I'll believe it to be the one. This is a young woman who came from Vienna to America. Her English was poor. She married a young man who also had Catholic heritage, and they moved from the East Coast to Phoenix. I met her when she had 2 small children, invited her to come to Homemakers. She came to faith. Her husband came to faith.
Amen.
Her daughters came to faith. Her daughters now are married, have children of their own, and she and I have been devoted sisters since I met her. The age difference, of course, is 25 years. She meant more to me because of the way God sent her, her openness, her willingness, and then this complete transformation, Bob. It wasn't just, oh, I think I'll go to church now, or no, everything she could devour about Christ, about living for Christ, about telling others about Christ became her way of life. She lives now in Cave Creek, and I see her at least once a year, a joy unspeakable to me. Would not have happened had Modern Homemakers not occurred, and God called me to do this.
Well, Donna, it's just incredible to see how God took an unwilling person who's unwilling to mentor others
To the
and to
contrary.
and to supernaturally, it seems, change your mind
Mhm.
to the point where, as you have been willing to allow God to direct your life, to influence hundreds, maybe thousands of women.
Well,
Um,
and that all of the pieces around it fit together. You know, it wasn't just me and God. It was all these pieces around it. People like yourself and the church we shared and the older women. And it just, God placed so many individuals into my life.
well, well, um, you've got just less than a minute. What would you say to those who are listening and wondering how can God use me more effectively to touch lives around me for Him?
You know, I have an easy answer for that. And you just use the word to those who are listening. I think all of these things happen, and God has something for all of us, no matter what it is, large or small, if we listen to Him, if we pause long enough to listen to Him through the word, to listen to him through the ministry of a local church, to listen to him through the ministry, those Chamber women who lived with me in understanding and pushed me and supported me were an essential part of all the listening that I did, but they're speaking into my life. So I would encourage followers of Christ to listen Listen, listen.
Donna Otto, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. God bless you. May God continue to bless you and increase your tribe.
Thank you so much, Bob. Bless you. Joy to be here.